Welcome back to CBS Eye on Health. We've been talking with Julie Kessler about her journey to finding treatment after years of worsening digestive issues and a misdiagnosis. Joining us is Dr. Haytham Abdul Baki, a gastroenterologist and director of the AHN Celiac Disease Center. Welcome, doctor, to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start off talking about what is celiac disease.
Well, celiac disease is one of many autoimmune diseases that we treat at the Autoimmune Institute. It's a disease that basically affects mostly the small intestine, and it is flared up when someone eats products that contain gluten, which is a type of protein that exists in barley, wheat, and rye. It's something that people are usually born with, but they tend to flare up at a certain time in their life. It could be at any age. And there's really no understanding what the causes are for it to flare or to start during someone's lifetime.
It seems, though, that it's talked about more so now than ever before. It's, people are talking about gluten-free products and eating gluten-free. Why is it that we seem to be
We have a little more awareness about gastrointestinal symptoms and about why these gastrointestinal symptoms happen. We've had much more awareness about celiac disease, particularly over the past, half century, just because there's more studies to indicate that there is true inflammation in the intestine that happen with patients with celiac disease, and there is some tests to prove that that does exist.
And it's not just a sensitivity to gluten-free or gluten foods, I should say.
That's a very good observation, because we tend to hear a lot of stories from patients that when you read something online, you could get a mixed idea or maybe an inaccurate idea of what celiac disease really is. We hear a lot about gluten allergy and gluten sensitivity, but these are not really truly celiac disease. Gluten allergy typically is something very visible. That's just like someone who has a peanut allergy and they ingest peanuts, they could get a visible reaction like a rash or a swelling, sometimes gastrointestinal symptoms as well. When you have gluten sensitivity, that means that whenever you eat gluten, you have uncomfortable symptoms, but that doesn't mean that you have damage that is irreversible to the small intestine. When we talk about celiac disease, if you don't avoid gluten, you could actually develop inadvertent injury to the intestine, and actually that could be reversible if you just stop eating gluten. So these are three different separate entities, but they tend to be mixed into one when line.
And that might explain just this long journey to diagnosis that Julie unfortunately had to endure.
Yeah, I'm afraid her story is a little, all too often I hear stories like hers.
Yeah.
When we talk about irritable bowel syndrome, which is a very common diagnosis in the gastrointestinal world, especially with the symptoms that Julie had experienced. But irritable bowel syndrome tends to be a diagnosis of exclusion. There's no real test for it, but we have to make sure that we've excluded all possible options for the symptoms that she's experienced. And celiac disease is not something that usually pops up very commonly, because our awareness of celiac disease, not only as patients or as a community, but also as physicians, we're not very much attuned to celiac disease as often, which is a shame, because it is one of the more common autoimmune diseases. It actually happens to exist in about 1 in 100 American citizens. So we actually have a very high percentage of patients with celiac disease.
And you must be tested.
It is something that is recommended to be tested for whenever you have any gastrointestinal symptom, really, if you look at the guidelines. But it's not something that's commonly tested, unfortunately.
And what happens if this goes untreated?
If it's not treated, you would actually develop inflammation in the small intestine. It can be missed because a lot of people who have celiac disease don't have typical gastrointestinal symptoms. If you read about it online, a lot of people say, well, if I have celiac disease, why don't I have diarrhea when I eat gluten? Or why do I feel good when I eat gluten? Or why don't I exhibit weight loss, which is kind of goes hand in hand with malnutrition or the thought of malnutrition. It's not really true, because with celiac disease, only about a third of patients really have the typical symptoms that we think they should have, which is diarrhea, abdominal pain, discomfort when they eat gluten. Most of them tend to be asymptomatic. That means they don't have symptoms, or they have symptoms that are beyond the gastrointestinal tract.
Well, and that would suggest perhaps what was going on with Julie. She talked about tingling fingers and a few other things that I don't think I would associate with
Exactly.
Right.
gastrointestinal.
Exactly. And you could think about how often a headache has been attributed to a migraine, or joint pains have been attributed to old age, or just because you're getting old, but that's something that needs to be evaluated.
Why did her symptoms get worse after her third pregnancy?
It is not uncommon for autoimmune diseases to change in severity or quality when there's a certain stressor in somebody's life, especially if it's a pregnancy. And in women, particularly when it comes to pregnancies, the autoimmune diseases tend to shift quality or shift how they behave during or after pregnancy. And we don't understand that exactly.
So Julie, you now find your way to the center and, of course, begin treatment. What was that like for you to meet the doctors, to understand this process more clearly?
It was wonderful. Isn't he so wonderful? I have to tell you, I had, like I told you before, when I found the Celiac Center online, my hopes were so high of feeling normal again. I'm gonna cry. But, so when I went to my first appointment, my hopes were so high, and when I met him and I met the dietitian and I met the nutritionist, they spent so much time with me. And as you can tell from, listening to Dr. Abdelbaki, he is exceedingly kind. He is abundantly intelligent. It was better than I even hoped for, because I knew that my health was in the very best hands. He knew my disease. He let me ask as many questions as I want. I'm very type A. I went to him with a page of questions, and he didn't walk to the door while I was halfway down the page and say, see ya. He stayed and listened, and which was so great, because he didn't just take care of my physical health, but doing that meant so much to me, to take care of my mental health too, so I could have peace about knowing what does this mean for me? Am I, can I feel better? Am I going to get healthier? All those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would imagine a lot of patients come to you in the same expression, saying, "Oh, I'm so glad I found you."
You usually go through a search of multiple physicians to finally get to the diagnosis, which again is not uncommon for celiac disease, but also being able to provide them the time and the education they need. And I told Julie this before. I told her that I'm not offering you anything that is so exceedingly difficult as a physician. The treatment is simple. It's just a gluten-free diet. But what I'm offering her is the empowerment, the knowledge that she needs to be able to understand her disease and know why it happens. And that comes with a lot of time and understanding, and a little bit of also, that's what we call care. And that's different than just knowledge and just dispensing a brochure.
And there is a lot of care that goes on there, and there are a lot of specialists, and there's the protocol that I'm sure makes many of the patients feel incredible. We'll talk more about that when we come back, because I can sense and see just how important it is to Julie, as well as the hundreds of other patients that are treated there. Of course, we've heard about how Julie found support for celiac disease at AHN, and when we return, we'll hear about how Julie is feeling now and how the Celiac Disease Center has even helped her other family members.